Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Ryan Santelli, and I have our group product manager for the process side, Mike Wild. He and I will be going back and forth discussing these slides and the applications in which to apply and the products themselves. The purpose of this webinar is basically to describe and to talk about products that you may not know we carry and options that we have, and including a new product we are launching called a PELF and a PLF housing with a PELF element. That being said, before I also get started, I will let you know that as you go through these slides, you're going to actually see Schroeder and HYDAC, and there's a reason for that. We are actually one entity when it comes to the two companies. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. And again, here is Mike Wild.
Thanks, Ryan. Additionally, the process group here at Schroeder has added some products over the years, but primarily our main focus has been on the RF3 automatic backwash filter and bag housings. And that really comprised about 95% of all the work we've been doing. Occasionally we'd get some requests for an ATF and for the RF4 that's used primarily in the machine tooling area. So the main purpose is that today is just make you aware of the other products that we have in so many different applications. Today we'll briefly go over the RF7, 9, 10, and 12. Talk a little bit about stainless steel filters that we have for high pressure and medium pressure applications, power booster blocks, basket strainers, candle filters. Ryan mentioned the new PLF2, and we just had a seminar on the high capacity bag and cartridge filters that will be very important going forward, and they're much in the line with the PLF2 as well. In general, our process filtration area, we handle low viscosity fluids, low viscosity water, emulsions, anything basically below 10 centistokes. For the automatic backwash filters, we're looking at loads of basically less than 1,000 milligrams per liter. Anything higher than that, we look at stage filtration, maybe an ATF followed by an RF3, followed by bag filters to get the necessary rates. Some of the items that we have don't necessarily fit into that mold. One of them is the RF9, and that's designed for lube and gear oil, heavy oils, diesel, and we can do very high viscosity type of oils. And this unit can be from smaller units that we just put on lube and gear and do central type of systems, all the way through very large ones that do the heavy diesel oil on marine and turbines. And we're also moving into the hydrogen and compressed gases as well. Now there's some gray areas in here with our fuels division, but in general we have GCF, which is a coalescing type of filter for gas, and we're also moving into an area of compressed gas where we can do different types of methane that we've been looking at, some landfill type of applications before gas compressors. So we're trying to round out our division, become basically anything that flows, we'll be able to handle it.
Basically, to give you an overview of the variety, which a lot of you guys are familiar with, we have the RF3, the R4, the RF5, and the RF7. And what we kind of want to highlight at this point for what you don't know is a little bit about the RF7, the horizontal filter. Now, all of these are compromised of the same premise of a conical filtration with automatic filtration, backwashing of each filter individually. The RF7, how it differs and why you can apply better to application is mainly due because of its horizontal build. If you look actually to the top right above the gear motor, you'll see a little picture here. It gets a little bit better in a few other pictures, but that is a lifting davit. The lifting of davit is to help your customer whenever they are looking for a very large system that they do not have to install an over crane lift, very expensive overhead crane lift that OSHA will recommend for lifting that heavy lid. So what that davit does is save your customer money. They can open the lid slightly easy and need to change your access elements if necessary, which again is a very rare experience, but it gives the customer the ability versus a cost of the actual crane. So that's just one of the biggest things. And the other thing about it as well is that it is very big for high flow. You can see that the actual ANSI is on the very bottom is the inlet and the outlet's on the side. Going into the RF10, this is a product that was launched a little bit over a year ago. Right now it's primarily being focused on the ballast treatment, but we're going to slowly start introducing it to land applications for necessary items. And the reason for it is because it has a high dirt holding capacity and dirt flushing capacity versus the RF3. It has similar function as the RF3, except the difference is a conical jet flush technology. That basically I'll get to in a second here, but again it keeps the same theory of the conical filter element, the wedge wire from 50 to 3,000 micron. Your super mesh wedge wire is an option as well. And then your product advantages again are backflushing independent of pressure on a clean side of a filter, dependent only on inlet pressure. It's highly effective backflushing with low pressure conditions and long backflush lines. The other thing that's pretty cool about this item is that when it does flush elements, it actually flushes individual elements when necessary. It will not do a whole backflush of every single element. Now, getting more into the jet flush actuator theory, if you look at the figure D in the top left-hand corner above the filter, above the elements, that is your jet flush reservoir. So as your filter is running, the dirty water is actually filling up that flush reservoir. So as your water is ready to be cleaned, a plunger actuator on top of the element will close, so therefore there will be a full suction going from the very top of the element to the bottom element, giving it close to 95% efficiency backflush. This is another key term and why this would be a better producer for high contamination versus the RF3.
One of the big things about the RF10 is typically with an RF3 you need to maintain the pressure from the effluent to the influent in order to have a good backwash. Typically you need 23 psi or greater. With the reservoir, the RF10 relies only on the inlet pressures. So we don't need as high as a pumping energy. We can work in low pressure applications, and this is coming in very handy if you have any customers, industrially or municipal, that have any type of membrane filtration. This will work very good in those applications at the low pressure range. Some of the applications that we've just, not only in the ballast water was the big one, but industrially we just did a long pilot test in the produced water area. And this is a field that we've not been very successful with, but with the RF10 being able to take high solid loadings and have this backwash, we were very successful in our pilot testing. So this has opened up another area in the fracking and the oil and gas on the produced water that we weren't able to be involved with in the previous attempts with the RF3.
Going to the industrial and municipal water problem, solids from raw water source quickly load up cartridge elements, resulting in frequent element changeout. So what we try to do is give a solution, and the solution usually, will be a stage filtration or, a heavy loading on the very end, such as we were just talking about the RF10 bag filter cartridge, and as we'll get into it, we'll see the PRFB, similar items like that. Premature loading of carbon resin beds, inefficient use of chemicals, flocculants, polymers, not affecting the proper way it's supposed to be for loading, fouling and plugging of equipment, components, nozzles, heat exchangers, cooling towers. That right there is usually why we can get into a lot of power plants and steel plants, because they're having the clogging of the cooling nozzles. Seal failures is another huge one for us. And the costs, what are the costs that get us in there? The replacement of cartridge membranes, which are very expensive in the membrane side. That's why we are usually called in. A disposable cost of old cartridges. A customer no longer wants to use a commodity. They want to go to something that is continual cleaning and self-cleaning. Replacement of carbons and resin. Labor to change out those large elements, which you'll see we get into further along when we start talking about the new product. Chemical flocculants and polymers. Equipment downtime and change-up. These are all just components of why we get into the picture and how we get in there. This says yes, industrial municipal water problems, but as we get further, it's a very common thing for almost every application. For work and protection filtration, this is kind of where I'm talking about a stage filtration. The pre-filtration is a decisive step in the multi-stage water treatment process. So you have your intake and then you have your downstream equipment. It has significant influence on the economic viability of the main process and after treatment. So what you'll have on the far left is your coarse filtration. This is for your larger material, your feathers, your grass, things like that. Stuff that you don't want the more expensive filters further down the line to get clogged up with, to get blocked, broken parts, stuff like that. So what we normally recommend is the ATF or the PRFS. Both units typically are around the 200 plus micron range. So they're your first stage. And then of course you're going to go into the fine filtration, which is anywhere between 25 to 200 micron. That's your RF3, RF10 as previously discussed. And then of course you have your finest filtration, and that goes into the PELF that we'll be talking about shortly. That's that larger element on the left. And then of course you have your cartridge filters on the right as well. Now that could also be a bag housing, could be a bag cartridge that we also will discuss soon here. There's multiple items to get under that 25 to 1, and sometimes it doesn't always stop at 1. Unfortunately, we do. We can only get to 1 for right now. We haven't seen a real need in the market for under 1, but we were never one to turn down an application.
In general, our filters are most often used as a protective or a pre-filter. If you're in an application that's using membranes, that's quite expensive for those particular media to be replaced. So we take off the heavy loading. Typically, if you come in for the intake, you can use the ATF much like a clarifier. A lot of applications, you'll see these big football field type ponds where the water comes in and they need that pond just for the settling. With our ATF, we're able to get high rate clarification out of it, and a number of these in series on a manifold can replace a big football field sized pond. So the footprint is very important there, as well as the ability to get that 25 to 100 microns type of particle in the system, protect your membrane, your ion exchange, and your carbon filters, which is very expensive on the changeover. And then if we need, if you're in front of downstream that needs low fine filtration, such as reverse osmosis, they need a 5-micron cartridge filter or removal rate prior to the membrane. So we can get down to the 1 to 5 that's required in that area. And then if it's actually a working filter, we can put in that stage filtration, that ATF, RF3, 7, 5, 10, the PLF to get to the low micron rating required for a lot of the water and wastewater treatment and protection of nozzles and pump seals and et cetera.
Going back to the PRFS for large coarse filtration for greater than 200 micron or equal to. The product description, like I discussed earlier, is a screen basket filter. It is also available as a double filter, a duplex system as well, for your continuous flow and never needing to shut down. It's used as a coarse filter, a bypass filter, or a pre-separator to give you a better idea. Now the screen basket technology is your insert basket and bracket. It's very similar to a bag housing, except you're not putting a bag into the basket. You're using just the basket filter itself. Now a wire mesh can go down to 25 to 1,000 micron, and a wedge wire can go to 50 to 3,000 micron. But to be in all honesty, and same with the perforated plate, is actually higher from 3,000 to 10,000 micron. But to be honest with you, we really like to keep this above 200 micron. Why? A lot of people ask. It's efficiency. Not saying that it will not work under 200 micron, but we like to rely more on something that we know absolutely 100% has our back, and that's your RF3, RF10, PLF, and even a bag basket technology that can get under 25 as well. The advantages of the product is high filtration efficiency at the 200, like I said before, easy to operate, robust filter materials, ideal for long-term operation, cleanable filter materials, low operating costs, and this is another very easy plug and play, very little electronics unless you're putting in a DP. And then the particles cannot enter the clean side when changing the basket. So it's just an idea of what we have to offer for the larger stuff that you are unaware of. Now getting into the finest filtration, that's where we're going to work into the PMRF, and then you'll hear a little bit further the PELF. The candle filters of a PMRF, this is your kind of your mount blown, your pleated material, your standard spun spray material. These are your cartridge elements that basically are allowing people to use a cartridge filter versus a basket filter for finer filtration. Now the product advantages, it's low pressure loss due to large cross sections and filter areas, very large filter area per filter element, and these can go up to 40, 60 inches at times. Compact design with high flow rates, flow optimized design, protection of the clean side during element change, and a high contamination retention capacity.
I just want to mention that the basket filter, the cartridge filter, the bag housings that we're showing here, they're really industrial strength type of situations. We also have if you're in a price sensitive situations, we have the more economic side of it as well. So we really need to know what's the situation, how it's going to be used, and the price sensitivity of the project, so we really guide you in the right direction of which product should be used for that particular application.
And here we start talking about the new product. Like I said, the other option was your cartridge filter that we decided, and then we also have the PLF. And it says the X on the end because it can be either a single working station, which is your 1, or it can be a multi-workstation, which is a 2. Specifically designed, the multi-workstation is for requirements of modern water treatment plants. These are larger filtration, and then we actually get into how big they can get. And I don't think it ends there. I think it could probably get bigger too, to be honest with you. But the filter element technology is a process filter element in 3 versions. You have the 9-inch high flow, which is a protective filtration. You have a 6-inch high flow, which is your work filtration. That's your heavy load. And then you have your even heavier load at Cascade, which is your 9-inch complex filtration, contamination loads and contamination episodes. That's for, very crazy algae bloom, stuff like that, for that will cover your PLF and disposable element. Now, the product advantages, of course, are excellent deposition rates, low pressure loss due to large cross sections and filter areas, very large filter area, very, very large. Compact design with high flow rates, flow optimized design, protection of the clean side during element change, and high contamination retention capacity. To kind of underline second to bottom on the protection of the clean side during filter change, that can be a highlight of selling this product. Basically, there is no cross-contamination when changing these elements, and that is what can really get you for the really intense applications that are not allow that at all.
If you're involved in any type of parts cleaning applications, this is what's really required, because it will not allow downstream penetration, and we can get very low, down to 1 micron rating.
So this is kind of what would be a standard production item. You have the large to the small, and as they come to the large to small, what's inside them? In the very largest one, you actually have 12 support tubes. On each support tube, you have 3 elements. So you do the math, 3 times 12, and that's how many elements you're going to be needing for each large housing. Now then you start working down, you've got the 9, 7, and 5. Again, these are all dependent on your actual flow, dirt holding, dirt contaminant, stuff like that. So again, this gives you you see the 3 different filters on each support pole, and then you see the cap on the top that screws in and holds those filters in, so there's no way they can be popped out or lost. Just like the RF7, you can see it has a lifting davit. This will help the unit be open and close and change the elements. So again, to go back to the element technology, you have the 9-inch high flow, the 6-inch flow, and the 9-inch high flow capacity. Now the 9-inch high flow is protective filtration of volumetric flows in parallel fold. That just tells you about kind of the pattern inside the material. Now the 6-inch high flow is your high polluting load with an M pleat. And then of course your high load cascade, which is for your really heavy stuff, is your contamination drawers. Combination between an M and a parallel fold or a pleat. So what are all in all these layers is your question here. Well, there's actually 6 layers altogether. 2 of the layers are drainage plant, and that's your front and your back. And then you have your protective fleece on that goes right after both of those. And then your center starts with the water will hit the pre-filter first, and then it'll hit the main filter, almost capturing the dirt and keeping it inside to prevent the contaminant from reaching the other side and going down the clean side. Now it's important for this mainly again to do the protection of having no dirt going to the clean side at all. Even when changing this element, there is a design so it prevents any cross-contamination. Now the O-ring cap and the filter media and the outer sleeve are also very important, but the O-ring caps and the end caps are designed specifically so they fit and fold to each other. As you saw in the design on each support tube, you have 3 of these elements. So again, here's our single housing. This is what you see for a smaller application. The dirt comes on, the poles slide and that shows you exactly how large these elements are with a center diameter. Now, the picture on the far right is the competition. This is what we're going against. We're going against the cartridge changeouts that have hundreds, 50s, hundreds, 200s, 300s elements that these companies, these energy companies, these coal plants, these any kind of mining, are paying men lots of money to about once, maybe twice a week, take out each and every single one of these elements who are only seeing about 30% efficiency, taking out each single element, and then replacing them with the new ones. And they're doing this multiple times a week, and it takes hours to do this. Now, changing out these elements, or this housing, only requires 1 person, even with the multi-housing units, and it doesn't take as much time either, as much as these hundreds to 500 cartridge elements.
In general, as we stated, we really are a protective filtration for other units, especially if you're looking at ROs. Reverse osmosis type of systems. Every reverse osmosis system has to have a 5 micron or lower cartridge type of system up front. So depending on the flow, they'll get very large. We had one customer that they designed their cartridge filters, expected them to be replaced every 2 months. The dirt load was so heavy, they replaced them every 1 to 2 weeks. We came in and gave them an RF3 up front to take the heavy dirt load off the cartridge, and they went from the 1 to 2 to 6 month replacements. So just the labor costs involved with those replacements were enough to get the RF3 up front of the system. We'll be going back and we're talking to them about the PLF2. They now want to get rid of even that 6 months to replace those cartridges down to something manageable with the PLF, so they can actually extend that to 10 to 12 months. And when they do replacement, it's a very quick replacing a quarter of the number of cartridges they're doing currently.
Real quick too, as you can see above the ATF and the RF3, it says a pre-filter. Now that's going to what these customers are using. This can go from a basket strainer, a screen strainer, even if it's just a screen in front of a pipe. Basically, this is what we're doing. A lot of these people have these RO systems that aren't prepared to take on the heavy solids up front, such as the ATF or we discussed earlier. That's kind of what we're going after. And even if they do have an automatic filtration system, we can be very competitive even after that filtration system and still work with them with the PLF, with depending on what kind of system they would use.
And in our previous Skype type of meetings, we presented the RF12 and the RF9 and the GCF. The purpose for today is just to let you know what other areas we're expanding into. The RF4, RF12 basically are for machine type oils, low flow water. The RF9 is designed for any type of diesel, heavy fuel oil, any type of oils. We're looking at using it for even WD-40 recycling at this point. And it's a unique way that we use compressed gas to push it in, so we're not wasting a lot of the clean oils that are going through. We're looking now at using this for central type of gear lube oil that can be passed through it. So the nice thing about it is we can get down to low filtration rates, typically around 5 micron, where with the RF3 we were basically at 25 or greater. We're also GCF. We're looking at a lot of different gas opportunities now, compressed gas, turbo compressors, dry gas seals. So our GCF is a coalescing type of filter. We've also developed in-house a number of filters that can do things such as wet methane. If a lot of places such as landfills are now they can't burn it off. There's new rules and regulations. So they're taking that and passing it to a gas compressor to get energy. So just to make you aware, if there's something that flows and it's a low type of viscosity, please let us know. We're trying to fill in some of the voids we have in our system, and we're trying to make partnerships with other companies so that we have a complete filtration line.
Just to give you a little quick background too on the filter on the far right, your GCF, as you're all familiar with our coalescing capabilities, and the purpose and the definition of coalescing is the removal of water. This is what this unit does. It basically coalesces the gas, a dry gas, and removes the water out of that gas system and drains it in that sense, just in case you have a few questions about how that works.
And I am also that, a lot of questions we get, what do you do with the backwash water? So now we have this backflush treatment unit. It's basically a sieve, an ATF type of twist sieve that goes into a bag filter. So now they can condense their backwash and don't have to send it out and treat it if they don't have that waste line somewhere, they don't have a pond they can throw it to. This really condenses it down to, they only have to handle about 30% of their backwash because most of it can be sent back, if it's a kiddie loop, back into the system, the head of the plant. And it's much easier now with this type of system. If they do not have somewhere to put the backwash, we can actually offer this BTU backwash treatment unit to them. And the basic principle is it goes through a sieve type of system. 7% of the backflush gets channeled off of this way and sent back into the buffer tank or into the waste stream. But 30% of that is condensed down, so they don't have as much backwash or backwash sludge, backwash waste to deal with. Most of it's retained in a filter bag that they can get rid of.
So basically all the other products available. Now we could probably sit here for a couple more hours and describe each and every single product that both HYDAC and Schroeder can offer. But to give you a general idea, again, you give us any form of a flow, pressure, we'll come up with a filter. We'll do our very best. In all these pictures, you see the EDF, the PBF, stuff that we didn't discuss here. These are, again, very high pressure applications, similar to what our mining background comes from. And again, the micron rating from 1 to 3,000. Basically, we're telling you that we're open to all suggestions you have for flow and filtration when it comes into a process line. It doesn't always have to be water. It could be emulsion, it can be even fuel, depending on what kind of fuel we'll find an application. And if we can't do it, we've got a lot of different product lines here that can actually work with it as well.
And as Ryan said, the possibilities are endless. So we have everything from pre-treatment to snow blowers at a ski resort to we have RF3s in the basement of hospitals cleaning their water as this gets passed on. As long as it's a low viscosity, as long as it flows, we'll be able to put some type of system in it. And as I mentioned, we're working on developing relationships. If you have a customer that has reverse osmosis and they need new membranes, we're forming a partnership that we can actually help you get a very competitive price on reverse osmosis membranes that we can help replace them. Different partnerships working on different type of equipment to round out. A lot of times we didn't have a complete system, we had components. So we're trying to get more into being able to give you a complete system or at least more options for your filtration needs. So I'd like to thank you for your attention.
You can email anyone at SI Sales to get information should you need it. Again, my name is Ryan Santelli, and I'm here with Mike Wild, and it's been a pleasure serving you guys today. Should you have any information or any requests, please feel free to contact us. We'll be happy to help you out. And said, have a great weekend and have a great holiday if we don't hear from you. Take care.
Whether it's a helpful how-to or a new product release, Schroeder Industries is your place for fluid filtration. Subscribe below.